Our world has lost a great our world has lost a great person, Mr. Miller. He was a wonderful husband, brother, father, grandfather, uncle, and friend. Mr. Miller was compassionate about what he cared about and what he believed in. I admire his compassion for those that he loved, his courage to say what was on his mind, his determination and willpower. When Bernie made up his mind to get something done, he did just that. No matter how hard or difficult the task. But what my husband and I admire most was Bernie's unconditional love for his wife Renee, his children, grandchildren, and family. Bernie was such more than a client. He was like an uncle to me, an advisor, a life coach. He gave me great advice on life and stock and, of course, politics. Karen, Scott, Laura, your dad's legacy of protecting what he loved, his honesty and wisdom will forever live on. Norman and I will truly miss Bernie. Rest in peace.
Mismo le David, Adonai roi lo echsar. Binote sheyar bitsein yan me menuchot yanachaleni. Nafshi shovev. Yanacheni v'magle tzadek lema'an shemo. Gam kirelech begitzar mavet. Lo irare ki atayimadi. Shiftecha umishantecha emayanachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorirai. Dishanta vashamen roshi kosiri vaya achto v'chesed yirdifuni koyam echayai mishaveti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Friends, I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. As you take a moment now and take a breath, we find ourselves going through a difficult and challenging time. And when our hearts are breaking and when we are facing trouble like this and sadness like this, we often turn to the psalmist in order to find comfort and peace. And so I invite you now to recite these words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. For as long as we live, he too will live. For he is now a part of us as we remember Bernard Miller. To you, Renee, to your children, to Karen and Scott and Laura, also to Elisa and to Ted, and to his brother Sandy, and also to Linda, and to his 5 grandsons, to David and Greg, Michael, Josh, and Aaron, and also to Isalu and to Gabby, to all the members of the family, and to so many dear and cherished friends, those of you who are here in person, and so many of you who join us via technology, as we are still unable to all gather together, whether you are here in person or joining us on the live stream. Our hearts unite today as we remember and celebrate the life of your beloved Bernie. Our sages in their wisdom have taught us that birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom. from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from sickness to health, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Bernie's journey, a life that saw nearly 95 years. It all began here in Cleveland. He was born on April 8th, 1926, to Fannie and Louis Miller. And Bernie and his younger brother Sandy grew up in the famed Kinsman neighborhood on East 135th Street. His father Louis was a plumbing contractor and his mother Fannie a homemaker. And fortunately for Bernie and Sandy, the family fared well as they made their way through some of the most difficult and challenging years in our nation's history. Bernie's brother, Sandy, lives in Florida. And while he's not able to join us in person today, I know he is joining us by way of live stream. And Sandy, I know that everyone here and everyone on the live stream joins me in sending our heartfelt condolences to you. Sandy, when we spoke on the phone just yesterday, you shared some sweet memories of a brother who was almost exactly 1 year your senior. You also remembered that in 1940 your family moved from the Kinsman area to Fenwick Road in University Heights before finally settling into the home on Claridge Oval. And Sandy, you spoke of your brother as someone who everybody loved. You described him as someone who was a good friend to all. And as a student at Cleveland Heights High School, you recalled that he was an active member of his high school fraternity, BAT. And with the two of you being so close in age, it was your brother who brought you into that same fraternity, BAT. You described Bernie as a good brother and a role model, and you recalled that following his high school graduation, Bernie enlisted in the United States Navy. And 1 year later, Sandy, you did the same. There's a very sweet story that both Sandy and Bernie's children shared with me. And the story goes a little something like this. While Bernie was serving our country as a radio man, transmitting and receiving messages in Morse code, his ship was about to arrive in Guam, where Sandy was stationed. And Sandy, you recalled that there was a Jewish lieutenant who lent you his Jeep so that you could go to the ship and pick up your brother and bring him back to your barracks, where you, Sandy, cooked your brother a very delicious meal, and the two of you enjoyed a very special reunion. Sandy, you also shared that all of your children loved their Uncle Bernie. And Sandy also remarked how Bernie always made Linda feel like she was one of the family. Now, Sandy, in your adult years with Bernie living here in Cleveland and you down in Florida, there were always many, many miles between the two of you, but that was the only thing between you. The bonds of brotherly love and friendship were close and strong. Now, as I've already mentioned, Bernie was very well liked growing up, and he had a really great group of friends. In speaking with his children, I learned that during his 2 years of service in the Navy's Pacific Fleet, he was the first person on his ship to receive that radio message that the war had ended. Over the years, Bernie would often reminisce to you, Renee, and to your children about how much he loved his time in the United States Navy. Following the war in 1946, Bernie returned home to Cleveland and he entered into the workforce, working side by side with his father in the family business, Shaker Heights Plumbing. The Miller family was now living on Claridge Oval, and their next-door neighbors were Ida and Lou Perlman, the aunt and uncle to Renee Perlman. Renee, you shared a story with me, one that most of your family knows, but it bears being repeated. Your Aunt Ida and Bernie's mother family, the two next-door neighbors, they were talking one day and they decided that you and Bernie needed to meet. It was a fix-up, or as we might say in Yiddish, a shidduch, a match. Well, Bernie must have been very excited and also quite nervous about asking you out for that very first date, Renee, because he asked a buddy to call you and pretend it was him in order to secure that very first date. Sort of like the Cyrano story. And Renee, you had that first date. And from the first moment that Bernie met you, he was smitten. And so were you. Bernie, so very handsome. And you, Renee, so gorgeous, so stunning. Together, you looked like a Hollywood couple. But much more important than that, so much more important than your obvious good looks, was that the two of you were kind-hearted and good people. And thanks to Aunt Ida and Mother Fanny, you and Bernie really found your beshert, the one who was meant to be. You were married on November 18th, 1951 at Park Synagogue with Rabbi Armin Cohn officiating. And Renee, you and your beloved Bernie shared almost 70 years together as husband and wife. This is remarkable. Your marriage, Renee, the love, the friendship, and the partnership that you and Bernie shared, it serves as a beautiful example to everyone, but especially to your children and your grandchildren. And while the two of you would have wonderful times with your couples club, dining out with friends, you shared with me, Renee, that you and Bernie didn't really even have to go out. You were happy doing anything together as long as it was together. Renee, you described Bernie to me as a good person, a wonderful husband, a great father. In other words, Renee, it sounds like he was a mensch, a really fine, good human. You also described him to me as a man who was hardworking and who demonstrated an excellent work ethic. You said he was always kind, and he also had this wonderfully playful and fun side to him. And Renee, you told me about your beloved, and you shared with me one of his greatest qualities, perhaps his greatest quality. You said that you could always count on him. When we think of all the people in this world that we cannot count on, what a wonderful and important quality for we to see in action. And that's what you saw with Bernie in action, that he was someone that you could count on. He was always there for you, Renee, and he was completely devoted to his family and friends. And as Karen and Scott and Laura entered into this world, the Miller family portrait became all the more beautiful and large and complete. His children shared with me words about their father, describing to me a man who worked so hard to make a living, but always more focused on making a life. I think he had his priorities in order. He wanted to make a life, a good life for his family. And Karen and Scott and Laura, when you spoke, I could see this picture. You were painting a picture for me of a dad who absolutely dedicated himself to providing for his family because family meant the most to him. And he taught the three of you important life lessons, the importance of developing a good work ethic, and the fact that things were not just handed to you. He taught you that hard work merits reward and respect. And your father taught you by example, because when his own father passed, you saw a dad step up and take such good care, great care of his own mother, your grandmother. Your dad would help to ensure that his mother would be able to stay in her home, and he shopped with her and he took her to her appointments, And when your parents, when your mom and dad would go out for dinner with you every Friday night, your grandmother was always included. You enjoyed watching him in what might have been his absolute favorite role, and that was the role of grandfather. He embraced grandparenthood with joy and endless love. He was the best grandpa, and David and Greg and Michael and Josh and Aaron, you know that he adored each of you. Each of you, in your own special individual way, were extremely special and important to him. Now, when Bernie's children were young, whatever leisure time he had, he enjoyed spending that bowling. He was a very good bowler, actually, and bowled on a league for many years. He averaged over 200 each and every game. He enjoyed this activity as well as the bowling pals. But it was after his retirement in 1990 that Bernie decided to engage in another activity that provided him with something that was very meaningful. As I spoke with the family on Wednesday evening via Zoom, it was his son-in-law, Ted, who brought up Bernie's passion and dedication to volunteering his time and energy in a multitude of ways. Bernie volunteered for the Red Cross, and for years he helped out at numerous blood drives, but he also had some skin in the game, literally, because he donated his own blood. He has a blood type that was a bit rare, AB positive, and he donated over 5 gallons of his own blood up until the time of his 80th birthday, when they made him stop, telling him that 80 was the cutoff. And Bernie was not really happy about that. But Renee, as you said, he had a really big heart, and doing this was very important to him. Bernie also volunteered at Menorah Park and Montefiore, and for many years, he was that guy who ran the snack shop. You could find Bernie volunteering at the Montefiore snack shop usually 4 days a week, and when he was there, he thrived. He loved it. He loved doing this, and he loved the people, the residents and the visitors alike. I told the family I'm sure I bought way too many candy bars from Bernie Miller. He dedicated himself to his volunteer work from 1990 until 2014. And although he received many awards and acknowledgments for his volunteer work, the accolades were never his motivation. It was always to help others and to give back to his community. You know, we have this special phrase in Hebrew called tikkun olam. Literally means repairing the world. And Bernie knew that single-handedly he could not repair this very broken world, but boy, did he do his best to make it a much better place. And again, leading by example, Bernie instilled in his children the fine art of volunteerism. Karen, I know you recently retired, and now you spend as much of your free time as you can engaging in meaningful volunteer opportunities, inspired by your dad. The family reminded me that Bernie had an amazing and outgoing personality. He loved people, and people cared deeply for him. Whether it was in these recent months, the relationships that he had developed, sometimes with a person at a hospital, sometimes with his caregivers, everyone who met Bernie and got to know him quickly fell in love with him. And then there were the trusted and wonderful friendships he cultivated in his more than 94 years. Or the love and the respect shared with his grandchildren and his children and his cherished wife, Renee. Bernie Miller was greatly loved by many because he gave so much love to everyone who knew him. And so, friends, through this sad moment, we find the strength to join with the sages of our people as we declare these words, Zichron Livracha. We pray that the memory of Bernard Miller will always be a blessing. Amen. We're taught that words which come from the heart enter directly to the heart. There are a number of members of the family who have words in their heart that they want to share with all of us today. And so first I'd like to call on his daughter, Laura.
Thank you for being with us here today. To those who are streaming this service, hugs and love to our boys, Isalu, Greg and Gabby, Uncle Sandy, Linda, and all our cousins, Sandra, dear friends who are with us in spirit and in our hearts. No matter how much time you have with someone you love, it is never enough. My father would have turned 95 years old in a few weeks, and we would have been together to celebrate the happy occasion. That is what we do. While looking through pictures this week, I found that there was cake, balloons, or a special meal with family in most of them. Sadly, instead we are here, remembering him and honoring him with broken hearts. For my father's 90th birthday, we had a family party and toasted him. I found my toast and saw that my words from that day expressed much of what I wanted to share about him with everyone today. My dad was larger than life to me. Why? He had a big, loud laugh that made me happy every time I heard it. When we were kids, he was the dad who often came outside after dinner to play Spud or Elimination with us and our neighborhood friends. His enthusiasm was contagious. Whatever he was trying was the best I've ever had. He had huge amounts of energy, especially when shopping or running errands. Honestly, I found it hard to keep up. He loved a good, loud, lively political argument. But there was no anger afterwards. The debate was the thing. He often had a twinkle in his eye, like a little boy about to take candy from the jar without permission. He was a human calculator. He could come up with a total or percentage in an instant. He was a frustrated card player, but continued trying for 3 hours every night with Mom. His love for our mom was endless. His beautiful Renee. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but my dad proved that wasn't true. After decades of having his meals prepared and served to him by our mother, he learned his way around the kitchen when she began needing help, and he was enthusiastic and proud of his many concoctions. He took such good, loving care of our mom. He had a heart as big as anything, as was evident through his love for all of us and through his kind acts to others. His love for our family was infinite and unconditional. We are great, wonderful, and always the best. I am so fortunate, as are all our family and dear friends, because we were embraced by boundless love. I learned a long time ago that when you love someone dearly, you are vulnerable to great pain. And right now, that is what I and many others are feeling. But I know that I am blessed to feel that way because I loved and was loved by my wonderful, dear father. Hopefully, the grief and pain will eventually soften, but I will always treasure and cherish every memory I have of my dad.
Thank you, Laura. Now I would like to call on his daughter, Karen.
I don't know how I'll be able to compete with Laura. She's very eloquent in her speaking. I've got two eulogies, I guess, to tell. One is from my cousin Jerry in New Mexico. He said, "The harsh reality of death, the reminder of our immortality, the guaranteed inevitable is only tragic if one lives a loveless, lonely, and regretful life. But one who loved and was loved by so many is a life well lived." This is our dear Uncle Bernie. Sure, we hurt deeply with sadness, but that means how deeply he touched our souls, reminding us of our essence, the love of family and memories. This is where lies the blessing, the magic of earliest memories from the 50s and 60s, all coming from Clara Jovel, the adoration of Fanny and Louie, all the family meals, and the Miller love of each other. These are my greatest memories, and Bernie played a major role. The smile and the laugh, those bushy eyebrows and big ears, and the voracious appetite for Fanny food. I loved his Al Jolson imitation. So, dear Uncle, congratulations on life well lived. You were loved by so many. You were such a devoted and kind and loving man. Your passing released a tsunami of emotion and memories that I am grateful for. Rest in peace, dear Uncle. You'll always be fondly remembered. Heartfelt condolences, dear family, from Jerry, Julie, and Alex. Also, my cousin Josh in California, who loved my dad, and he said, just rest in peace, Uncle Bernie. And my son, Gregory, wrote this. For 28 years, I was blessed enough to know my grandpa. He was someone I always looked up to. He dedicated almost 70 years of his life to his wife and family. My grandpa set the standards for being a loving husband and father by his constant support, care, and love. I hope to make him proud by doing the same. My grandpa was my biggest hype man. I remember simply jumping over a football beanbag, and he would have me feeling like I was going to be the starting running back for the Browns. He was such a bright light in my life. He was my grandpa, and that's what grandpas are supposed to do. I will miss talking and sharing good news with him and hearing the excitement in his voice. We shared 28 years worth of memories together, and I will forever cherish that. I will miss visiting Ohio and the consistent Red Robin's and Corky and Lenny's trips. I will miss having dinners at the same kitchen table for these past 28 years. I will miss the sight of Grandpa falling asleep with cards in his hands while still playing gin rummy. I will miss his constant smiling and laughing. I will miss his handshakes and always thinking how tough and cool his thumb without the nail was. I miss my grandpa and wish I could have just one more hug and hear him scream, "Goulardi," just one more time. Thank you for being the best grandpa anyone can ask for, and I can't wait to see you again. Love always, Gregory. And from me to my dad, you are my rock, and I will ever and forever be your Corrine, Corrine, Corrine. I love you, Daddy.
Thank you, Karen. I now want to call on his son and daughter-in-law, Scott and Alyssa. Does Alyssa want to come up as well?
Hi, everybody. I miss my father terribly. I have a pain in my side that won't go away, that I do not want to go away. I had to see my father's strength sapped away over these past several days and weeks. I wouldn't have wanted to miss that time for anything, however. I could not stand that alternative. That alternative finally arrived late Tuesday night. I hated it. I hated the disease that caused it. I'm angry over the disease because it took the life of a great man, my father. My father was strong in body and spirit. He knew what was important. He was rooted in what was important. He never forgot it. We never forgot it. It was family, and it is family. In his heart and soul was an unconditional love for each and all of us, his children, his relatives, his friends, and especially his dear wife, my mother. The strong love was rooted in us. It was and is the foundation, the pillar of who I am. It is the fundamental gift I want to pass on to my children, and this love and this kindness to others are the guideposts of all my thoughts and actions toward my family and all whom I encounter. Along with that love was his pride in his children and his grandchildren, as you've heard so many times already. He took joy in hearing of our accomplishments, large and small. This too was his legacy, something to pass on to our children, bolstering self-confidence in our own actions with the knowledge that there was at least an audience of one, appreciating whatever it was we were trying to do, whether it was sports, snow shoveling, or academic or business achievements, or anything else. I have so many wonderful memories of my father, so many that have been shared already. Hearing his enthusiasm over and passion for his volunteering activities, his many disappointments over the Browns, his joy over a good meal, and of course, his love of politics and all things financial. My father was an intelligent man. He was not shy about stating and defending his views. And these views led me and others to think about all sides of an issue, not just the one we were predisposed to support. He listened, and we listened. And of course, so many of these memories had my mother at the center of his world. How else can you explain so many years of losses at Gin Rummy unless so deeply rooted in my father's love for and devotion to my mom? My dad worked hard at everything he did, whether it was for work or in retirement. He never quit. This attitude is another part of the legacy left to each of his children and something we have sought to instill in our own children. He put his heart and soul into every task and project, always looking to improve. Even as a kid, I remember watching my dad succeed in his bowling league among his friends and then trying my own hand at bowling to reach some level of success myself. I cannot speak of my father without mentioning his service in World War II in the Navy, Fleet, and the Pacific, and how important that service was to him, as you've heard. My father was a radio man fluent in Morse code. To me, he was and is and always will be a hero. Hard to fathom how he, as an 18-year-old, right out of high school, shipped out to sea in the middle of Pacific from the middle of America in order to serve his country and make for a better future for the American people. Once I asked him what ship he served on. He found a picture of it and an article about it and sent it to me. Seeing that picture meant a lot to me and brought home to me the reality of the war and his part in it. Then there were all the little things he did without fanfare, a gift here, a thoughtful comment, his wonderful beer hug, and his smile, and his laughter. Even as the end neared, it was his smile that kept me going, filling me with hope and joy. It is that smile that will continue to keep the flame of his memory alive within me for all time. Farewell to my father. Let your spirit soar in the heavens forever. Thank you.
I lost my father when I was 15 years old. In contrast, I knew Bernie Miller for 37 years. And while we weren't close, we were greatly fond of each other and loved each other. Two elements of that fondness was one, as everybody else has mentioned, he loved baiting me politically. And for many, many years I rose to or descended to that challenge and argued and argued. But at some point I grew up and he would start and I would say, "No, thank you, Bernie," and he would just smile. The other element was that every time we saw each other, and it was never enough visits, he would take me aside and discuss any number of medical issues, ranging from the tiniest little paper cut on his pinky to the very most serious kinds of things. So it was even more greatly heartbreaking and heart-wrenching that he and that you went through this terrible process. But I know that his spirit is here with us, and that our memories of him and his spirit will light the way for our future.
Thank you, Scott and Elisa. Friends, of our speakers today, two of them are coming to us via their cell phones. And at this time, I am going to put my phone on speakerphone so you can hear remarks from Cousin Mike, who also happens to be a rabbi, but has some very special words to share with us. Mike, are you there? Okay, I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Mike. I'm calling in from Philadelphia. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
And great. I'm sending a lot of love and condolences to everyone, to cousin Renee and Karen and Scott and Laura and Alyssa and Ted. I wish I could be there with you in person. I see that my mom and Dave are there, and we're sending you lots of love. It is hard to say how big of a part of our family and my own memory Bernie played. I really, almost every family memory of every event and life cycle event, a graduation or a confirmation, Passover Seder, Rosh Hashanah dinner, whatever it was, Renee and Bernie were always there. And Bernie had this incredible presence. When I think about Bernie's face, I actually think about three distinct parts. And it felt sometimes like they could each express a slightly different idea. There was, of course, Bernie's eyes, these bright eyes that could twinkle at you. There were his eyebrows, which had their own personality and could send a different message. And he also had this infectious and warm smile. And so whether he was poking fun at us or pushing us into a political conversation or giving us an honest-to-goodness compliment or a piece of advice, it was always the interplay of that twinkle in his eye, the movement of his eyebrows, and that big, infectious smile. And Bernie was just such a wonderful and loving cheerleader for us. You know, he would delight in the way when my brother Dave and I would do something at a Seder or we'd reach a milestone birthday or graduation, Bernie would take incredible delight in that growth and achievement. And he was really there for us. I want to share two quick stories. I was supposed to give, this was of course before I was a rabbi, I was supposed to give a speech at my confirmation, which is like a 10th grade ceremony, kind of commemorating a certain achievement in terms of Jewish religious school. And I did not get the speech out very effectively. I was supposed to be talking about God, and I jumbled the first sentence and almost every other sentence that came after it. It was not the brightest moment. You would not have thought that this was like a future rabbi speaking here. And I was feeling really down and really embarrassed. And we all went out to lunch after, and Renee and Bernie were there. And Bernie started poking fun at me about it, but not in a way that made me feel worse about it, in a way that actually helped me get over it and to laugh at it and to realize that even with the mistakes, that it was endearing and that people could see through that and hear what I was trying to get to. And like that was just one example of a time where Bernie could kind of reframe and reset a situation that showed a lot of love and support. The other was I had a summer job at a restaurant in Cleveland called Chi-Chi's. And if you don't remember, this is the highest level of culinary excellence for Mexican food. And they announced that they were closing and they were going to offer a bonus to anyone who stayed all the way through the end. And I was so excited to stay on and to get this bonus. And Bernie, again, with that kind of twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face, you know, they're never going to pay you the bonus. And of course, Bernie was right. I worked the last day Chi-Chi was open. They never paid the bonus. And, you know, to say that to someone in high school could have been a moment of kind of throwing cold water on them or of pushing their own cynicism onto a young person. But it didn't feel like that in the way that Bernie did it. It actually felt like a good lesson. It prepared me. And I think it got me ready for a bunch of other situations in adult life where people say things, and it gave me a good set of eyes and instincts for knowing when they intended to follow through on that promise or when it was just a promise in words and wouldn't be followed in deeds. The final thing I want to say about Bernie and the impact he had on our life as a family is there were a lot of Jewish holidays that we spent together, and you can imagine as a rabbi that I might remember the seders or the motzi or the incredible food. All of those holiday rituals, in a lot of ways in my mind, were the background. And the real main event at those holiday meals was the loving, explosive political fights that we would have with Bernie. And I remember as a little kid watching my grandparents and my mom and my dad engage in those fights. And then as a high school kid, my brother and I trying to stand up and to have a voice. But I'm sure my brother feels the same way. Not only was it always with love and super stimulating and interesting and a learning experience, but a lot of the skills that I use today in terms of navigating conflict and making a case and trying to sell someone on an idea at work and even in my family, I think those skills were sharpened and honed debating with Bernie. And also maybe even an expanded ability to get along with people who had different political views. So the last thing I just wanted to say is that there is a celebrated quality in Jewish tradition that is, it says, a machloket l'shem shamayim, a debate for the sake of heaven, is something that endures forever. And that is the kind of debate that Hillel and Shammai would have, the famous Hillel that everyone knows of. That was the kind of debates they would have centuries ago. And those were debates that were fierce and hard fought, but they were debates that were more about love and understanding than they were about winning. And when I think back to all of those political debates at Shabbat dinners and holiday dinners throughout the years, I think it was a machloket l'shem shamayim. And I certainly know that the impact of those debates endures in my heart and soul, and will be part of my story and my family forever. So Bernie, I love you. You will be deeply missed, and I send all of my love and condolences to all the family in Cleveland and wish I could be there to give you an elbow bump or fist bump, whatever it is that we're doing in this COVID period, but sending lots of love.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Urim. Cousin Mike, thank you so much. I'm going to end this phone call, and we're going to continue with the service, but thank you for joining the family in this way. Friends, at this time, I would like to call on his son-in-law, Ted, and following Ted, our last speaker via a phone call will be his grandson, David.
Bernie was a father to me. He was a role model. I look back at the relationships that he had with everyone around him, and I start to think in various situations I get myself into. what would Bernie do? With his family, he expressed unconditional love. No negative phrases left his lips when speaking of his grandchildren or his children. He offered unconditional support for everyone he interacted with. He had an infectious smile and enjoyed an energetic discussion. He was sincerely enthusiastic to everyone he spoke to, and everyone he spoke to felt better after they talked to him. I was lucky enough and handy enough to help him fix many things for him, and help him and Renee fix many things. And when he was able, he helped me as well. I was lucky enough, possibly, to do the last real plumbing he did when he helped me install a water heater about 30 years ago. If I told him something I was working on, he would never forget it. He would never fail to inquire how it was going every time I spoke to him, because he cared. He had his own names for many items. All bread, rolls, muffins were biscuits. All apartments were sweets. Golf carts were jitneys. Pasta should never be green. He treated me as a son and gave me the unconditional support he gave any of his children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and friends. I will miss him.
Thank you so much, Ted. David, are you there? It's ringing. All right, David, I'm about to put you on speakerphone, okay? Okay, you'll want to turn down the sound on your device, please. Friends, our last speaker in this service of memory is his grandson, David. Go ahead, David.
My earliest memories of Grandpa Bernie, he was always Grandpa Bernie to me, never just Bernie. Not usually Grandpa, he was always Grandpa Bernie. There of us playing and wrestling in the living room of his condo, where every time that I came, I'd make a pillow fort out of the couch cushions. He would be on his hands and knees, which was pretty much full height to me. I was probably 8 or 9, and I can picture myself jumping on his back, and my mom saying, "Be careful, don't jump on his back." He must have been in his late 60s or early 70s by then. Grandpa Bernie was always such a strong man. He lifted weights and he exercised his whole life. We spent almost every Thanksgiving and many other holidays together growing up. But it was after I finished college that my wife and me, we started visiting Grandpa and Grandma on our own. I'm so glad that I had probably 10 years with him, where we could just sit and talk without all the holiday hustle and bustle. And he would tell me about his life when he was younger, in his 20s, his 30s, and his 40s, and he would ask about my life. I always felt how proud he was of me. Over the years, and through our visits to him and to Grandma, he also grew to see Isolou as his granddaughter too. He was so proud of her too, and he'd always ask her if she was still lifting weights, and he'd smile so big when she'd say, "Yes, I am, Grandpa Bernie." I love Grandpa Bernie, and Isolou loves Grandpa Bernie, and we'll miss him so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Friends, the family has asked me to read the following paragraph to you. They've written, our family's thanks and appreciation to the many, many wonderful people who helped Bernie and Renee throughout these past few years, becoming dear friends and adopted family, with special thanks to the kind and thoughtful caregivers, Jamie, Janetta, Natalie, and Kathleen, Hannah, Tatiana, and others at Jewish Family Services, Maureen Allen, their nurse practitioner, who not only provided medical care but friendship, support, and help to all of us, and his beloved Joey D., 20 years of finance and friendship cherished by both. Friends, before we conclude this service, I would like to announce that if there is anybody who wishes to make a contribution in memory of Bernie, the family has suggested that you might consider one of these 3 very beautiful and much needing in donations organizations, either the Jewish Family Service Association of Cleveland, St. Jude's Hospital, or the Crown Center for Senior Living in St. Louis, Missouri. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, dayan ha'emet. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, creator of the universe, the righteous judge. Adonai natan v'Adonai lekach, yehi shem Adonai mevarach. God has given, and now God has seen fit to take away. Still, we bless the name of God. The mysteries of life and death are beyond human understanding. We are perplexed and overwhelmed when pain and anguish befall those whom we love. In sorrow, confronted by death which has taken Bernard Miller from our midst, we feel our frailty. Like delicate flowers, we flourish only for a day. Eternal God, Shepherd of Israel, guide us, your flock, with love and with compassion. And if in our grief and desolation we stray from you, do not abandon us, but draw us closer to you. Grant solace and comfort unto those who mourn, and may their lives together help to sustain them and add to the blessing which is theirs in the memory of the life of their beloved Bernie. In the valley of the shadow of death, beside the still waters, and in the green pastures, you, God, are our shepherd. Be our strength and our shield, our stay and our comfort throughout all of our days. And let us say, Amen. Friends, as you are able, I invite you now to please rise for the memorial prayer El Mole Rachamim, as we ask God to accept Bernie's soul. El Mole Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Bimalot Kedoshim Utorim Kezohar Arakia Masyirim, Et Nishmat Binyamin Ben Leb, Shahalach Le'olamo, Began Eden Techei Menuchato. Ahna Baharachamim Hastirechu, Beseter Knafech Le'olamim, Utzror Bitzror HaChayim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'yanuach B'Shalom, Al Mishkavo V'nomar, Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Bernard Miller, who has gone to his eternal home. God of mercy, we beseech you to remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that Bernie performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. God is his portion. May he rest in peace. And to this we say, Amen. We turn now to the words of our mourner's Kaddish, and we recite together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam ulalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei dekudisha berichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da amiran bi'alma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shalama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru. Amen. We pray that God, who makes peace in a high place, will send peace and comfort to you, the mourners, to Israel, and to all humankind. And to this we say, Amen. Friends, as Shabbat is nearing, our time of rest, and we pray of peace, I say to you that as you have come here today in peace, so may you go forth in peace. On behalf of Bernie's entire family, we thank you for joining us on this sad but most important day.